Wow. We really peaked with TMNT movies on our first outing, didn't we? Hello everyone, this is Darren of GB Productions, and today we'll be taking a look at the 1990s Ninja Turtles film. Ninja Turtles is a franchise I hold near and dear to my heart. I watched the '03 and 2012 series almost back to back when I was little, and have always been obsessed with the heroes in a half shell. The Turtles practically controlled the majority of my childhood, and I'm always excited to see what new iteration will grace this ever-expanding mythos. TMNT 1990 is the big theatrical debut of the Turtles, and centers around the Turtles trying to take down an organized ninja crime ring led by none other than the Shredder, who happens to hold a special relation to the Turtles' past, specifically with their master, Splinter. Okay, so if you couldn't already tell by the title of this video along with my intro, I love the absolute hell out of this movie. And also wholeheartedly believe that no following Turtles movie has ever been able to match it, let alone top it. The story to this day is really damn good. The biggest thing I always have to commemorate this movie for is its really well balanced tone. The '87 show is what put the Turtles on the map back in the day, and it would have been really easy for the writers of this film to lean more so towards that childish and comedic tone when bringing the Turtles to the big screen. The tone of that show has always been something the OG comic creators have had an issue with. I will always cherish this movie for striking an amazing balance between the comedy of the '87 show with the dark and serious shit. The writing in this movie is still really freaking good. Coming from someone who hasn't read the OG Mirage comics, I can still appreciate and respect that they didn't stick as close to the '87 series for its tone. The main reason I'm so adamant in giving this movie its due diligence in regards to its tone is because the later movies start to steer far away from this particular style, but we'll get to that at a later date. The writing as well in this movie in general is way better than I could give it credit for. I firstly want to call attention to the really fun and witty dialogue. The way the characters at times are able to bounce off of one another are really fun. Whether it be Casey's interactions with Donnie or Raph, Casey's back and forth with April, the little catchphrase contest between the Turtles, or the scene where April and the Turtles are all just hanging out in the apartment, it's all just a whole lot of fun. I also really like the familial elements at play here, that I honestly didn't appreciate nearly enough when I watched this movie when I was younger. I like how the foot soldiers aren't just cookie cutter henchmen, and are just the troubled youth of New York, with the Shredder manipulating them and grooming them to think that they're in this weird messed up family. There's a small sad element to where you see them getting knocked around by the Turtles or their master Tatsu, that you can't help but think in the back of your mind that these are just kids looking for a place to call their own. Not just that, but the message and theming on the Turtles side of things is really good too. The way this movie handles the Turtles and their relationship with Splinter is amazing. The running story of Splinter trying to prepare them for a life without him is honestly heart-wrenching. I don't know about y'all, but for me personally, it's really easy for me to forget that all the parental figures in your life, the people that took care of you for all those years, won't always be around for you. And I'm so glad that this movie went this route with its story. I love seeing stuff like Raphael's gut-wrenching scream seeing that Splinter is kidnapped, and Mikey being brought to tears during the campfire scene. Stuff that just tugs on your heartstrings when seeing these guys come to grips with not always having their dad around. Like I said, the wacky shit is really fun, but once stuff like this becomes more prominent in the film, it kicks things off to a whole new level. I also just really love the Turtles' relationship in this movie as well. I think it would have been very hard to mess up the characterization of these guys, what with the '87 show and whatnot, but I still feel the need to commemorate the writers for doing a great job with them. They're all a bunch of goofs. Even Leo, who most people prominently associate with being the stick in the mud compared to his brothers, can mellow out and chill. That particular title goes to Raphael, who adamantly is against some of his brother's wacky antics. The main personal conflict is with Raph, and his problem with his anger, specifically in achieving peace within himself. Admittedly, this is something I kind of have a problem with the further we get into the Turtles franchise as a whole, but nevertheless, it was really well done here. Even the Leo and Raph rivalry isn't so much of a rivalry, but just a little squabble that arises due to the pressing situation at hand. Which I prefer as opposed to shit like Raphael just not wanting to listen to orders just because. Now, granted, the movie does hint at these arguments between the two being a common occurrence, but for what this particular one did for the story, I think it was pretty cool. Yeah, they bicker and stuff like that, but at the end of the day, they're all there for each other, and I love that. I'd also love to bring attention to the absolutely amazing animatronic work done for this movie. The Jim Henson Company has made a name for itself for bringing to life amazing puppeting and animatronic works. And their work on the Turtles, especially the facial movements, to this day, are absolutely spectacular. The facial movements are all very smooth and hold up very well. And except for when we see the inside of Donatello's mask that one time, you never get the feeling that these are just guys in suits, especially with the way the fight scenes play out. The action and fight scenes are still cool as hell. There's just a certain charm that comes with having these guys being practical and tangible as opposed to CGI creations. Which I don't hate, but you know it's easier to be invested when watching Michelangelo actually get choked out or Raphael get knocked into a trash bin when I can see that these guys are actually being interacted with, you know? The animatronics especially shined with what they did with Master Splinter. Now, maybe it's because I was spoiled with the 2012 series growing up, but I personally like a Splinter who has just a bit more kick in his step. And throughout this whole trilogy, he doesn't really do much, which is kind of disappointing. Nevertheless, with what they managed to pull off, you can't deny that it is impressive. To speak further on the characters, I think they're all amazing. Like I briefly mentioned, all the turtles are characterized fairly well. Mikey, the kind-hearted and lovable goofball, Donnie the smart one, Raph the hothead, and Leo the leader. Raphael is definitely the one given most focus out of all four of the Turtles, which is something I start to have a problem with most Turtles movies. Some getting more attention than the others, specifically pertaining to Leo and Raph, but for this movie, I think despite all that, all the Turtles get their time to shine in some way, shape, or form. April O'Neil being our audience surrogate was really effective. Her interactions and relationship with the Turtles is always a major highlight for the film.
You dirty rat! You killed my brother! You dirty rat! Woo!
That must be Splinter's favorite. It was a joke.
I admittedly tend to not like when the Turtles are depicted to have a crush on April, because I just find it cuter and more wholesome when they have more of a big sis little brother dynamic. But I'll give this movie a pass because it only happens a handful of times, so it doesn't really plague the entire film. I always thought Casey was the coolest motherfucker when I was a kid, and this guy is still a badass even to this day.
Well, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is Pain 101. Your instructor's Casey Jones.
Splinter isn't really that proactive in this movie, or the whole trilogy for that matter, but his story in trying to teach the Turtles to grow mentally and prepare them for their inevitable independence is really freaking powerful. That campfire scene to this day always gets me teary-eyed. Although I gotta say, if there was something I hoped they took inspiration from regarding basing stuff off of the 87 show, it's that I wish they went with Hamato Yoshi being Splinter and not his pet rat. Look, I know it's more comic accurate, but I'm sorry. I just can't take the fact that a rat, by just watching a nigga do karate, is able to perfectly mimic his fighting style enough to teach 4 mutant turtles for over 15 years. In a concept like Ninja Turtles, you already expect a lot of stupid and nonsensical shit, but there is such a thing as too stupid in my eyes, even for Ninja Turtles. On the villain side of things, we have Master Tatsu. He doesn't do or say that much, but he is very effective in being Shredder's strong and silent right hand. Speaking of which, the big utensil himself, the Shredder. He is so damn cool in this movie, And it all has to do with
Presentation!
the first glimpse we see of him. He's covered in shadow, ominously giving the Foot the go-ahead to kill April for knowing too much. And when we finally see him in full, he presents himself with this long and foreboding march, with these sick-ass drums kicking in as he strides, with all the other kids and Tatsu looking at him in awe. The music then simmers down as Tatsu slowly removes his cape to present his shoulder blades. Then as he masks the newest foot soldier, he speaks.
Money cannot buy the honor which you have earned tonight. You make us all proud.
This is easily one of the coolest villain introductions that I have ever seen. Shredder honestly doesn't do a whole lot in this film, and he kind of goes out like a little bitch at the end. But you can't deny that this movie did an outstanding job with his character. In comparison to the 87 show where he was just this bare-bones, mustache-twirling villain, this Shredder is intimidating as hell. You don't believe me? Alright, take this scene for example. In the scene where an infuriated Shredder threatens Master Splinter, as he walks away, he looks at Tatsu disappointingly. And then he walks away. That one look was enough to drive Tatsu to beat the shit out of his students. I don't know about y'all, but if all it took was for a look to give this nigga a whole mental breakdown, I think that should be telling of what kind of villain the Shredder is. If you already couldn't tell from the various clips I've used thus far, I also think this movie is brilliantly cast. All of the Turtles' voices are on point, but I do prefer some over others. Brian Tochi and Corey Feldman do a pretty good job as Leonardo and Donatello respectively. Tochi brings us a calm and noble Leonardo.
We have had our first battle, Master Splinter. They were many, but we kicked. We fought well.
And Feldman's Donatello was something. It's not really bad, just not my particular taste.
Hey, Mikey, did you ever think about what Splinter said tonight? I mean, about what it would be like. You know, not having him.
Josh Pais and Robbie Rist as Raph and Mikey, I absolutely adore. Pais gives Raph a tough Brooklyn accent, which has kind of been my preferred take on the Raphael voice.
Cricket. Cricket? Nobody understands cricket. You gotta know what a crumpet is to understand cricket.
And Rist does a spectacular job at the surfer dude voice for Mikey.
Hey! Wait for me! Whoa! God, I love being a turtle!
Splinter was voiced by his puppeteer Kevin Clash. Bro sounds like he has a frog in his throat, but nevertheless, I think he sounds pretty good.
Yes, Uroku Saki. I know who you are. We met many years ago in the home of my master, Homato Yoshi.
Now for our human cast. Judith Hoag was absolutely perfect as April. She has that snarky, confident spunk that you can never get enough of, whether talking shit to the police chief, or her interactions with her boss, or her back and forth with Casey. Hoag is probably the best live-action April we've been graced with. Now, I know that's not saying much, but I felt that it still needed to be said. Eli's last name I can't pronounce does an amazing job as Casey Jones. I briefly mentioned how cool he is as Casey, but I just also love him as the lovable, bumbling dumbass.
You're a claustrophobic.
You want a fist in the mouth? I've never even looked at another guy before.
What he means is that you're...
They also do the whole romance thing with him and April, and it's fine, I guess. I ain't gonna say it's forced or anything, but it didn't leave an everlasting impression on me. The Shredder was perfectly cast, especially with that cool-ass voice.
You are here because the outside world rejects you. This is your family. I am your father.
The score for this movie by John Duprez, a name that I'm most certain that I mispronounced, is absolutely phenomenal. I swear the main theme for this movie, the is easily just as iconic as the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We've discussed Shredder's introduction and the amazing My favorite has to be when the action gets all intense and shit, and you just hear the I'm honestly praying to God that I can actually play small snippets of music, because I know for a fact it's gonna be crazy as hell just watching a dumbass go without any music to accompany it. Overall, this movie just holds up really damn well. The practical effects along with the cool fight choreography is still really cool. The score is iconic, and all the characters are perfectly casted. The tone is perfectly balanced, and as a whole, this movie just does an excellent job at paying respects to the OG source material, whilst taking some of the leaps the 87 show made to give us what I consider to be the best TMNT movie. So, with all that said, if you agree or disagree with anything I've said in this video, let me know right down there in the comments below. Also, be sure to like and subscribe. This is Darian of GNB Productions, and take care.